Could we see a hex pump going into the auctions?
That's what I'm kind of thinking. I mean, I don't know how savvy the whales are in this system, whether they kind of suss this out or not. Kind of why it's nice for us to go public now. Maybe some of them will watch this, and like if we were going to play, if I was a whale going to play games, I wouldn't be pumping Hedron. I'd be pumping Hex.
And can you summarize that point too, just for people here, of like why that's the way it is?
Because pumping the Hex price drastically increases the value of these HSIs, because they're all based on Hex pretty much. The Hedron component of them is actually not so much. It's really the Hex price, which is the massive source of value in the.
If they could go up and down though, wouldn't a pump be like, well, aren't people still going to value them at the lower price because they know, hey, this is the pump, and even though the value today is there, I know it may go back down unless PulseChain launches or something like that,
It all comes in. I mean, everything is self-reflexive, so people have that information. Who knows what they do with it, wow. and how they. But if you wanted to burn a lot of Hedron, the way to go is pumping in the Hex price. Wow. And it means you cash in on the pools as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you may also see a scenario. I mean, we've talked about the supply shock that we're probably going to see in Hedron leading up into these auctions, right? And the supply shock is coming from the fact that, all the dumpers that dumped and didn't believe in Hedron, they've already done that. They dumped Hedron down to, was it 7 zeros or
6?
Close?
Yeah, 6, just nearly 7, I think. Yeah,
nearly 7. So they dumped all that out, right? And then the people who are picking all that Hedron up, it's not like they're taking all that Hedron and immediately throwing it on the market for other people to trade against, right? Like providing a liquidity. It's basically going in their wallet, and they're going to sit there and they're going to stake it in the ICOSA protocol, or they're waiting for the auction. Either way, they're not going to part with their Hedron. And what you're seeing now is all those big dumpers, especially the sharks, the dolphins and the sharks that dumped Hedron, they literally could not buy their position back off the market without skyrocketing the price of Hedron. And it would move way too fast for them to be able to get anywhere near the amount of Hedron that they started with. So one thing that you may see is, at the very least, they're going to recognize that there's going to be a lot of Hedron burnt in these auctions, and that's going to pay out a lot of yield into these ICOSA pools. So what token can you buy a lot of right now? Like in theory, you can still buy a decent amount of HEX, right? We saw a couple big buys today and a couple big buys yesterday, where you can still buy a lot of HEX without a whole lot of slippage. So what if we see these guys buying up HEX, pumping the price of HEX, which we've already started seeing, but what if they're buying this HEX, creating the HSI, selling to the contract, and then getting that ICOSA to stake it in order to accumulate all this yield and wait out this bear market, right? I mean, that's a play that they can make without suffering slippage. If they want to go in and buy a bunch of Hedron, they're going to eat a lot of slippage.
That's because at the moment, or in each of the Hedron pools, the Hedron is below 50%, and some of it's well below 50%. So basically that means extremely thin liquidity for Hedron pools, which means it can pump very easily. It can also dump very easily, but I think you'd be crazy to be dumping it now. So I think you won't get as good value by pumping Hedron, but with HEX, you can put a lot in there to add value to these.
Yeah, and keep in mind, not everyone's goal is the same. Not everyone's going to play this auction the same way. So, the first time you hear about the auction, you think, oh, well, everybody's going to be going in there and they're going to be competing for these HSIs, and they're going to want to buy as many of those as they possibly can. Sure, a lot of people will be doing that, but not all of them. Not all of them at all. A lot of people are either betting on the pools in ICOSA, like ICOSA, Watsa, and Hedron pools, and they're betting on the yield that's going to come from these auctions. So that's where they're making their play. And then other people are just Hedron maxis, essentially. They have a wallet full of Hedron, and they're just going to keep stacking that, and they're going to let that stay there and not do really anything with it, knowing that all this Hedron is going to get burnt and their asset class that they're holding onto is going to get gradually more and more rare. And they're going to base their performance off of their Hedron bag. So there's a lot of different angles you could look at. But I think you have to assume that there's going to be multiple different strategies, not just one.